I think you're correct.
Good evening.
Good
And
evening.
thank you all for coming. I'm Nancy Baring, President of the League of Women Voters of Manistee County, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the League and the Manistee News Advocate, who is partnering with us tonight to present this educational program on the 3 ballot issues that will be on the November 6th ballot. So thank you, Michelle Graves, for all you've done to help us get the word out and give us support all the way around here. The League of Women Voters has been around since women got the right to vote 98 years ago. It was originally formed to educate those women so they could fully participate in our democracy, and still continues this mission today of educating citizens about issues and working to protect our democracy and our voting rights. The League is nonpartisan, which means we never support or oppose any candidate or any political party. And fortunately, the group now includes men as well as women. Tonight, this will be a strictly educational presentation of the ballot language, how the proposals would work, and the pros and cons, as well as information about who is supporting and who is opposing the proposals. We are delighted to have with us tonight Paula Manley, one of our State League board members, and she will provide us with the information we need to make an informed choice. She and her husband Ken have traveled here from Kalamazoo. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here tonight. And I am with the State Board, and this presentation is a League of Women Voters of Michigan Educational Fund educational presentation, as Nancy said, looking at the 3 statewide ballot proposals. What are they, and what would they do? We are fortunate in Michigan, actually, that we have, our Constitution has given voters powers that are not given in others. Well, 24 states have these powers, but one is called an initiative, and it gives voters the right, if certain conditions are met, to initiate legislation, laws, and to amend the Michigan Constitution. The other right voters are given is called referendum, and it gives voters the right, if certain conditions are met, to put it on the ballot, the question whether a law the legislature had already passed should be undone. You may remember a few years ago, the Emergency Manager Act was passed by the legislature, and the voters undid that act. Then the legislature immediately passed a new one, and they attached an appropriation to it, which under the Michigan Constitution makes it impossible for voters to undo. We do have this year 3 ballot proposals, and actually between 1996 and the year 2015, according to Ballotpedia, there have been 38 measures on the Michigan ballot, an average of 4 in even-numbered years. And during that period, 18 of the 38 measures, or 47%, were approved by voters, while 20 or 53% were defeated. And there were no ballot proposals in 2016.
How's that for that?
So we'll be looking at the ballot language, the pros and cons, by the major supporters and opponents. And the League of Women Voters is not responsible for the views or the facts of the groups. So this year on the ballot, we have 3 proposals through citizen petitions. One is a voter-initiated law, and 2 are constitutional amendments. It takes a simple majority to approve a voter-initiated law. Will be approved 10 days after when the elections are going to affect 45 days. So, can the legislature change a constitutional amendment? No. Can the legislature change a law if passed by the voters? And that is yes. By a three-fourths vote in each house, they can change a law that's been passed by a ballot proposal. So, nothing in the Michigan Constitution may be altered without the approval of the voters. So, any action by the legislature to amend the Constitution has to be placed on the ballot. So, we're going to look at the three proposals as they are listed on the ballot. We have proposal 18-1, regulate marijuana like alcohol petition. We have proposal 18-2, voters not politicians petition, which is amending the Constitution. And proposal 18-3, promote the vote petition, which also amends the Constitution. And these are the names and numbers that Secretary of State has given them. So, proposal on your ballot, you'll see proposal 18-1, and it reads, and I think you all have copies of that, a proposed initiated law to authorize and legalize possession, use, and cultivation of marijuana products by individuals who are at least 21 years of age and older, and commercial sales of marijuana through state licensed retailers. So this proposal would allow individuals 21 and older to purchase, possess, and use marijuana and marijuana-infused edibles, and grow up to 12 marijuana plants for personal consumption. It would impose a 10-ounce limit for marijuana kept at residences and require amounts over 2.5 ounces be secured or locked in containers, create a state licensing system for marijuana businesses, and allow municipalities to ban or restrict them, permit retail sales of marijuana, and subject to a 10% tax dedicated to implementation costs, clinical trials, schools, roads, and municipalities where marijuana businesses are located. Change several violations from crimes to civil infractions. So what does this proposal do? It creates the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, and that would legislate recreational use of marijuana, legalize cultivation and sale of marijuana, permit taxing revenue from commercial marijuana facilities, permit creating administrative rules, and prescribe penalties. So the question has been, what will the tax rate be on marijuana, and how much money is expected to be generated for Michigan? Retail marijuana sales will be subjected to 10% excise tax, in addition to our regular 6% sales tax. So based on marijuana usage rates in Michigan and the experience of other states that allow adult use to use marijuana, it's estimated this energy would generate hundreds of millions of dollars per year in new tax. Well, where will these revenues be allocated? In addition to covering the cost of regulation, the marijuana excise tax revenues will support Michigan schools, roads, and local governments. And so the distribution would include 35% to state school aid fund for K through 12 public education, 35% to the Michigan Transportation Fund for the repair and maintenance of roads and bridges, 15% to municipalities where a marijuana business is located, and 15% to counties where a marijuana business is located. In addition, the taxes will provide $20 million per year for 2 years to fund FDA-approved research analyzing the benefits of medical marijuana for treating post-traumatic stress disorder and other medical conditions of U.S. Armed Service veterans. So the estimate of the revenue, the opponents say it could be about $48.3 million, and supporters say it could be hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So there's also language about, was concern that Well, should people who've been committed of marijuana crimes have their records cleared? And the people who made this petition said that they looked at doing that in the petition, but their lawyers told them that if they included expungement in the language and also had the legalization of the marijuana in the same proposal, that couldn't be done, or it would not be legal. So that's why they didn't include that. So under the proposed law, persons not authorized to possess, cultivate, or deliver marijuana and other legal amounts would be penalized with a civil infraction, a fine not more than $100, and forfeiture of the marijuana. And it goes on to say that persons who possess, cultivate, or deliver not more than twice the amount would be penalized with civil infraction, a fine of not more than $500, and forfeiture of the marijuana for a first violation. With a civil infraction, a fine not more than $1,000, and forfeiture for a second violation. With a misdemeanor, a fine not more than $2,000, and forfeiture for a third violation. Persons who possess, cultivate, or deliver more than twice the amount would be penalized with a misdemeanor, but would not be imprisoned unless the violation was, quote, habitual, willful, and for a commercial purpose, or the violation involved violence. So persons under the legal age of 21 who possess otherwise legal amounts of marijuana would be fined between $100 and $500. They have to complete 4 to 8 hours of drug education. So this map shows states in green currently have legalized recreational and medical marijuana. And you can see that Michigan is a blue state, which has, all the blue states have legalized medical marijuana. 9 states and the District of Columbia have legalized small amounts for adult recreational use. So if this is passed, what types of licenses will be granted? The initiative authorizes the state to grant licenses for 6 types of marijuana businesses: the cultivators, processors, testing facilities, secure transporters, retail stores, and micro businesses. So is there a cap on that? The initiative creates 3 classes of cultivator licenses. There's a Class A microgrower, which would allow for the cultivation up to 100 marijuana plants. Class B would for cultivation up to 500 plants. Class C license would allow for the cultivation up to 2,000 plants. But no one would be allowed to hold more than 5 grower licenses of any type at the same time through 2023, and then after that point, the cap will be lifted. The initiative contains languages that provide for strong local control that will allow communities to regulate the types and number of marijuana businesses they want within their jurisdiction. It does not address those with medical marijuana cards, how they would be treated if this passes. And if you remember, back in 2008, Michigan voters legalized the use of medical marijuana. So, a summary by the supporters. They say it's sensible alternative to Michigan's policy of marijuana possession. Prohibition. Positions Michigan as a national leader in the adoption of smart adult use marijuana laws. Create state regulated system of licensed marijuana businesses. It enacts an excise tax on marijuana at the retail level in addition to the standard state sales tax. And the source for this is from the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, and their website is regulatemi.org. So who supports? There's a coalition to regulate marijuana like alcohol, as I mentioned, and there's the American Civil Liberties Union, the Marijuana Law Section of the State Bar of Michigan, the Marijuana Policy Project, MI Legalized, Michigan Cannabis Coalition, Michigan Normal, National Patient Rights Association. And the opponents, they talk about why legalized recreational marijuana is bad for Michigan. Recreational marijuana industry targets our youth. Recreational marijuana makes for dangerous drivers. Today's marijuana is not the marijuana your parents used. Recreational marijuana increases criminal activity. There are better alternatives to recreational marijuana legalization. And recreational marijuana is not good for our economy. And the source for that is Healthy and Productive Michigan. And they also have that website. So who opposes the Healthy, Productive, and Productive Michigan? The Committee to Keep Pot Out of Neighborhoods and Schools, Michigan Chamber of Commerce, Smart Approaches to Marijuana Action. And there's been some various pros and cons out there. Some of the pros have been marijuana prohibition has been a huge failure. In addition to covering the costs of regulation, marijuana excise tax revenues will support Michigan schools, roads, and local governments. And that's from regulating marijuana like alcohol. Oops. And the cons, for some reason that's not showing up there. The Healthy Productive Michigan website says legalized recreational marijuana is bad for Michigan. States, governments, and societies lose money wherever pot is legalized. The second proposal is proposal 18-2. And you probably know that every 10 years the U.S. has a census, and that looks at how the population shifts throughout the country. So each state redraws its district lines. And Michigan politicians have been doing this, doing it to, both parties have done this to their advantage over the years. So this proposal looks at a proposed constitutional amendment to establish a commission of citizens with exclusive authority to adopt district boundaries for the Michigan Senate, Michigan House of Representatives, and U.S. Congress every 10 years. So what would this proposal do? It would create a commission of 13 registered voters, randomly selected by the Secretary of State, before each who self-identify as affiliated with two major parties, 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and 5 who self-identify as unaffiliated with the major political parties from across the state. But politicians, consultants, and lobbyists would be banned from serving on the commission. It prohibits partisan office, as I mentioned, partisan office holders, candidates, their employees, and certain relatives from serving. It would establish new redistricting criteria, including geographically compact, continuous districts of equal population, reflecting Michigan's diverse population and communities of interest. Districts shall not provide disproportionate advantage to political parties or candidates, and require an appropriation of funds for the commission to operate and for the commissioner. What does this proposal do? It amends the Constitution to do the following. There would be a Citizens Redistricting Commission, CRC, in charge of the redistricting process. They made up of 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents from across the state. As I mentioned before, politicians, consultants, and lobbyists to be banned from serving on the commission. The CRC is required to conduct the business in public hearings that are open to input from across the state. All proposed maps and the methodology and data to create them must be submitted as public reports. Everything down to the variables used by the computers to draw the maps will be available to the public. And the CRC is required to follow a prioritized set of criteria and standards when drawing the maps. So there'll be a minimum of 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 2 independents on the commission must approve the final maps. This prevents one political party from controlling the process. So the proposal contains process and timelines to apply for the membership on the commission, select the members of the commission, to hold public hearings and meetings, and use specified criteria to determine districts to adopt the districting plans. There's a lot of detail that goes into that, all of that, and be happy to kind of share that with you later if you have questions, but basically the process would start if this passed, the process would start in January of 2019 with applications going out, and then people would respond. They have to specify under oath, they have to certify that they are a member of one of the major political parties, or under oath that they are independent. And so there's a random selection, and then eventually get down to 13 members of the commission. And there would be appropriation for that, for the Secretary of State's office to fund this commission, and also some compensation to the commissioners. So, summary by the supporters. Voters should choose their politicians, not the other way around. Allowing politicians to draw their own districts is a conflict of interest, and it puts the fox in charge of the hen house. When politicians have the power to draw voting maps, they have the power to handpick their voters. And the source for that is from Voters Not Politicians, and their website is posted there. And who supports? Again, I don't know why the whole slide isn't, but the Voters Not Politicians is a coalition of individuals, and then there are many organizations. Actually, the whole other side should be filled. There's lots of organizations. You see on that page, there's many organizations who have endorsed it. Labor, advocacy groups, community organizations, and faith organizations. So the opponents have said, and this is a quote from the Michigan Chamber press release, quotes from Jim Holcomb, who's Executive Vice President and General Counsel for the Michigan Chamber. And he said, the proposed redistricting ballot proposal would drastically rewrite Michigan's constitution to change the basic foundation of state governing structure by removing the voice of the governor, legislature, and courts in the redistricting process, replacing 3 branches of government with a randomly drawn 13-member commission that would be unelected and unaccountable. The ballot proposal would also place an inordinate amount of power in the hands of a partisan Secretary of State, thus favoring one political party over the other and generating divisive partisanship, public discontent, and distrust of the electoral process. And who opposes? Protect My Vote. And since this, just in the last week or so, they do now have a website. Michigan Chamber of Commerce and Michigan Republican Party. There's some sample pros and cons. The pros are voters, not politicians or lobbyists, will draw maps that cannot favor one party or a candidate. Maps will be drawn through compromise by Republicans, Democrats, and voters who align with neither party and must follow strict criteria impartial. The process will happen in public meetings, not behind closed doors, and everything used to draw the maps must be published publicly. That's from Voters Not Politician website. And the cons from Protect My Vote and Michigan Freedom Fund, which for some reason is not showing up there. The cons are opposition group Protect My Vote has suggested calling it a majority partisan commission because 8 of the 13 members would be self-identified partisans, 4 from each political party. And the Michigan Freedom Fund said this proposal wouldn't allow all citizens to join the commission. He pointed to the person from that fund said that exclude partisan officials and their family members. Therefore, not everybody could be considered for the commission. Proposal 18.3 is a proposal to authorize automatic and election day voter registration, no reason absentee voting, straight ticket voting, and...
I think you're ahead of yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Skip one, okay. We'll backtrack a minute. In talking about proposal 18.2, we do have, the league does have a lawsuit that's on gerrymandering, which is supposed to be going to trial in February 2019, asking the courts to declare unconstitutional the districts that were drawn in 2011 and to require new districts to be drawn. So if this was successful, the lawsuit would affect districts for the 2020 election.
Before.
Okay. If proposal 2 is passed in November, it requires Secretary of State to take many steps starting in December to set up a Citizen Redistricting Commission, and those districts will be after the 2020 census, then the district lines will be drawn in 2021. So the CRC would draw the lines for the 2022 election. So that's the difference between the timeline for those two. And this would be for Congress, state, and House and Senate. Okay. Now we'll go on to 18-3. This is a proposal that's going to sit to authorize automatic and election day voter registration, no reason absentee voting, and straight ticket voting, and current legal requirements for military and overseas voting, and post-election audits to the Michigan Constitution. So the details here. This proposed constitutional amendment would allow a United States citizen who is qualified to vote in Michigan to become automatically registered to vote when applying for or updating or renewing a driver's license or a state-issued personal identification card, unless the person declines. Simultaneously register to vote with proof of residency and obtain a ballot during the two-week period prior to an election, up to and including election day. Obtain an absentee voter ballot without providing a reason. Cast a straight ticket vote for all candidates of a particular political party when voting in a partisan general election. So that's how it would be seen on the ballot. So what does the proposal do? This amendment to the Michigan Constitution provides a common sense approach to safeguarding elections, puts voters first, and removes barriers for working families by protect the right to vote a secret ballot, ensure military members and overseas voters get their ballots in time for their votes to count, and provide voters with the option to vote straight party. 39 states have the secret ballot in their constitution. Michigan does not. The right to a secret ballot is now left to the legislature. So conceivably it could change without a vote of the people. The second point, military members and overseas voters receive an absentee ballot at least 45 days before the election. This ensures delivery can be on time. And to put it in the Michigan Constitution demonstrates a commitment, although it is federal and state law. Third point, provide voters with the option to vote straight party. Michigan has had this option for 127 years. There is a federal lawsuit on implementing PA 268 of 2016 that bans straight party ticketing voting. There has been a stay on that law, keeping it from going into effect. However, on September 5th, the judge removed that stay. So in this election in November, there is no straight ticket voting. 4, automatically register a citizen to vote at the Secretary of State's office unless the citizen declines. Allow a citizen to register to vote anytime with proof of residency. Provide all registered voters access to an absentee ballot for any reason for 40 days prior to the election. And ensure the accuracy and integrity of elections by auditing results. Right now, when you go to the Secretary of State's office, you can register to vote, but you have to ask about it. This would automatically give the person the option to opt out instead of opting in. Right now, number 5, allowing citizens register to vote at any time. Right now, we have up to 30 days. Like right now, October 9th is the cutoff date for the November election for registering. So with this proposal, you could register right up to and including an election day, but you have to go in person the last 2 weeks to do that with this proposal. Point 6, provide all registered voters access to an absentee ballot for any reason for 40 days prior to the election. Right now, you have 30 days prior to an election to apply for an absentee ballot, and you have to have meet certain criteria, like 60 years of age, be out of town. There's a list of criteria to get an absentee ballot. Point 7, about the auditing election results. Many states already do have that in their constitutions, but Michigan does not have that. So, summary by the supporters. Every eligible person can vote and every vote will count. Make voting accessible, secure, and fair, so our democracy will better serve all Americans and our laws will better reflect the will of the people. Everyone, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, deserve to have their votes secure and counted. And the source for that is Promote the Vote. Who supports? There is a Promote the Vote coalition, and then it's been endorsed by many, many folks. Again, I don't know why the slide's only showing half of it, but we do have many groups who have support, have endorsed this proposal. Since in the last week, we do have some opposition, and it's Protect My Vote. And the opposition has, statement is, proposal would undermine election integrity by removing safeguards that would prevent ineligible people from voting or casting multiple ballots. By allowing voters to register on election day, this proposal would not give clerks any time to run existing processes to verify the eligibility of voters. Same problem with no recent absentee voting for anyone without verifying a person's identity before being sent a ballot. Some proposals are written into law, and their inclusion in this proposal serves only to mislead voters about its true purpose. The proposal would be a disaster for election integrity. Promote My Vote is a ballot question committee, and they do not have a website. Some sample pros out there is let's make voting a sure thing. Every eligible person can vote, and every vote will count. And again, everyone, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, deserve to have their votes secure and counted from Promote the Vote. And Protect My Vote is saying the cons: undermines election integrity with same-day registration. Some items, such as secure ballots, are already law. No need to put election laws in the Michigan Constitution. Basic election information. You can go to vote411.org to check. You can put in your address, and I know there's bookmarks over there with all the website and information. But you can go to vote411.org, put in your address. Up comes your ballot for your particular area, And I know that all the information for the local and the state offices and candidates and the ballot proposal, all that's in there. And so it's like a print voter guide, only it's electronic. So you have the biographies of the different candidates and then responsive to questions that they were asked. You can tell your friends and relatives around the country that they can also go in to their particular city or state where they live, and they can get the information. If you are wondering if about your voter registration, you can check it there. You can also go to the Secretary of State's website. Absentee ballots became available on September 22nd. As I mentioned, the last day to register to vote is Tuesday, October 9th. Election day is Tuesday, November 6th. Polls open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And remember, you may not vote a straight party ticket in the partisan section of the ballot. And remember to vote for the proposals in the nonpartisan section. So you have to go all the way through all the candidates, and you'll find the ballot proposals at the end. And also, the Center for Research also has nonpartisan information about the voter guides, about the ballot proposals, and information about the voting. Are there any questions? Yes.
Proposal 1, marijuana law. Do you have any information about how much the state would pay for law enforcement by changing this law?
I have no information on that. You might want to, you could maybe go to their website, regulate, and see what they have to say about that.
And also, this excise tax, that'll 10% will be collected by the state?
Yes.
Distributed according to what you described?
The 35%, 15 to 15, yes.
So local communities would get 15% of that 10%?
The local municipality would get 15% where the business is located, and the county where the business is located would get 15%, yes.
Both get 15%.
They both get 15. So if there's something in Manistee would get it, and then the county would get it. 15. The way the proposal reads.
And the county could distribute to the townships?
I don't know about that part. I don't know how detailed it is. But that's what the basic outline of it. Yes.
I also have a question about the marijuana law. Was the excise tax on medical marijuana when that was passed, or is this a new tax?
This would be a new tax.
And so now the excise tax will be on medical marijuana as well as recreational marijuana?
It would be just on the marijuana,
Okay.
I think.
So there's no distinction now why you're getting your marijuana? Okay.
I do not believe there is any distinction, but let me see if I can. Perhaps I can look it up for you. This is tax rate on marijuana. It doesn't distinguish between medical or recreational. Any other questions? Yes.
Regarding proposal 18.2, who did you say would choose the members of that committee, the commission?
Okay, Secretary of State will randomly send out applications.
To whom?
To voters people across the state, and then or you can apply yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then they get a pool, and then from that pool, so if I can get the exit, the legislature has option to strike some names. Let me see. Get the exact. exact.
I know that there's,
I can't find the exact reference right now, but I know that, oh, here we go. Okay. Any citizen, except those that we mentioned, excluded, could apply. They're required to be self-identified or oath, whether affiliated with a political party or independent. The Secretary of State would also send out applications to random citizens until at least 30 Democrats, 30 Republicans, and 40 independents who applied. The Secretary of State's office would randomly select 60 Democratic applications, 60 Republican applications, and 80 independent applicants. And then they use some kind of statistical weighting measure to, quote, mirror the geographic and demographic makeup of the state, unquote. And if fewer apply, the pool would be proportionally populated from those who did apply. Then the State House and the State Senate leadership would review the applications and be allowed to collectively strike 20 applicants from the pool of 200. Republican and Democratic leaders of both parties could each choose 5 people they'd like to strike. Then the Secretary of State would randomly choose 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and 5 independents from the remaining 180 applications. And that gets you to your 13. So it's a little complicated, but that's how it would work, according to
the way it's written.
The way it's written.
Today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the marijuana law. Do you know if law enforcement has a reliable means of measuring how much marijuana somebody has consumed? So, like for alcohol, there's a breathalyzer test. If law enforcement feels that somebody is driving under the influence of marijuana, how are they going to measure that?
I don't know about that.
There's nothing, is there anything in place?
Not in this
Do the
group.
law enforcement agencies have anything in place?
They might, I don't know about that. The proposal doesn't have anything, but law enforcement would probably.
I think they're working.
I think there must be something.
There's a pilot program, I believe, in Saginaw or Bay City right now that's working on roadside testing for that. But it's not statewide yet and it hasn't been verified.
So I would imagine that'd be something they would want to develop.
Yes. think so.
When did they change the straight party voting, and who made that change?
Okay, there was a law 268 that was passed, and the legislature passed to ban straight party voting. And then there was a lawsuit, so the courts put a hold on getting rid of straight party. But then a judge on September 5th of this year lifted that ban. So the law went into effect. So the law says you cannot vote straight party. So that's how that happened. Yes?
Hi, Ms. Manley.
Mhm.
Just a couple things on the promote the vote. As a clerk, in this proposal, it says, requirements for military and overseas voters, which we already have,
Right.
and post-election audits, which we already do. So is the issue that it's just not in the Constitution? Is that what the issue is? Because we already do most of these things
That's
that are
why-
in this law.
Right, and that is happening. They just want to make sure that continues to be that way. So they're including that in the Constitution, make sure that it stays that way, that everybody,
And I think you had mentioned that you can obtain an absent voter ballot up until 30 days before the election. That's not
no,
correct.
I said, no. I didn't mean to say, I meant to say you can start getting it 30 days ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Actually, you can get up
Well,
further than that.
further than that, started September 22nd.
Ballots.
So, yeah.
And what's the other thing I was going to ask about? I guess, I as a clerk, again, because
Sure.
this is coming from the clerk world.
Right.
Having people register to vote on election day to me is a disaster. I mean, I'll just be honest. I mean, does that mean they can hop from precinct to precinct with their ID and register to vote and vote?
I would not think so.
Well, how would that be tracked if it's the same day
Mhm.
and they're going to that precinct, registering to vote, getting a ballot, voting, and going to the other side of the county or to the precinct next door?
Would be in the system, when they put it into a system?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know how many
Ideally,
clerks you think there are in one precinct that can do this on election day when you're busy processing voters, putting ABs through.
And our township uses paper copies of everything.
It's a hard thing
Sure.
to think that that can all happen even 2 weeks before and be accurate. And, we hear a lot about fraud voting now, that it's a mess. Is it really a mess? Not in Manistee County, I don't think. I think we do a pretty decent job here. But in the bigger areas, I think there's probably problems.
No,
Correct?
no.
You hear that all over the news, how there's
Not
all
my
this fraud. So anyway, what I'm saying is though, I think if you have someone even registering 2 weeks ahead of time, and
they have to go to the Secretary of State.
I know, but I get that stuff from the Secretary of State and the county clerk's office.
Right.
And to get that in within 2 weeks from the state and get it disseminated to those local clerks, it takes more than 2 weeks. It really does.
Okay.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's good to know.
The other idea of.
Sure, it's good to know that part, Pete. It's good to have all the information, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
From a practical standpoint.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, it's good to hear that.
Could be logistically.
In the trenches.
Yeah, it's good to hear what you're experiencing.
A couple of things. One is that it seems like proposal two sort of enshrines a two-party system. I'm kind of curious what would happen if all of a sudden we developed a robust third or fourth party, and we're putting this in the Constitution that says, the two major political parties. Do we have a constitutional crisis at that point? When we don't have two major political parties, but we've got three or four? That's just something to consider.
It's something to consider, yes.
The other thing is that would it be possible for the legislature, for what Joe was talking about those problems, about if somebody registers the same day that they're given a provisional ballot, the same way as that under certain circumstances they're given a provisional ballot now. That's not in the Constitution, but it probably would be legal for the legislature to pass a law, it certainly wouldn't violate the Constitution.
Right.
Would that help the situation, Joe?
To give a provisional ballot? Yeah, but then right now, a provisional ballot is, it's up to the voter then to come back within 7 days and prove that this is the precinct and this is where I am. So if you are going, just say this happens, to a couple precincts to do that, you'd go back maybe to one precinct because that's where your ID would show, but you wouldn't go back to the other one because you're not legit there. I'm just trying to, trying to wrap my head around how to do that. It would be a provisional, the board of canvassers would be prolonged of certifying an election because there is that time frame on a provisional. That's not that big of a deal, I mean, that can be worked through. But,
There could be some logistical challenges, is what you're saying, basically.
it could, and I worked with you guys, I'm all for everybody vote and every vote counts, but the clerk part of me says, holy cow,
We get that.
Well, it's good to hear, yeah. And how the other states handle it would be interesting to hear, because the other states do have this and how they handle it.
Yeah, I think you said 39 states have that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to research that and see what they've come up with, because I can understand your concerns. Any other questions? Yes.
Regarding the first proposal, do the boundaries for schools and daycare centers, how does that interact with people who grow up to 12 plants in their home for personal consumption? Is that kosher or not? Or I thought right now there's I don't know, 400 feet or something from those kind of places.
This particular proposal doesn't address that, but there's already things in place. I would assume that would continue.
The drug-free zone,
The drug-free
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you gotta be a certain.
Well, it does say marijuana
certain
businesses.
Are those largely
It
municipal
doesn't
laws
say
though?
people in their home. It says
400 feet, you think,
marijuana
and the proposal would allow,
The municipalities can control the areas, so if they now have that.
So we're talking about commercial businesses,
Yes,
not personal.
not personal, commercial. Well, the proposal allows for personal, talks about the different levels.
Right.
Yeah. But the proposal does not address what you're asking. Yeah.
A person, in the proposal, a person can indeed have plants in their own home.
Right.
Okay? And indeed, you can keep cannabis, which is a heck of a lot of marijuana. And 2.5 ounces have to be locked up. So it's a very liberal policy in terms of home use. No question about it. But in addition, that's the thing that you're concerned about, I think. I don't know the answer to the question I'm going to pose, but the question is, can you be growing marijuana within the 400-foot free zone? And I don't think that I think Paul is right. The proposal doesn't address that.
It doesn't address that.
My guess is that I don't think that ought to be a point of contention. I think when the law was written, it was about the drug-free zone. It had to do with the use of and possession of within a 400-foot range. So I don't know how it applies to personal home. There's a whole other set of laws that probably come in terms of privacy and all that stuff.
Yes.
Also, in relation to this proposal one, I'm curious about what effect it would have on industrial hemp. Because it would still industrial hemp would still be basically impossible if you can only grow 12 plants.
The other part of the proposal is that you can have up to 500 plants in the retail business.
Yeah, but that's not industrial hemp. The plant, the species is a very useful species for, as we all know, for all kinds of things. It was used widely in this country during the Second World War. It's just a point of curiosity. If anybody knows anything, I'm not going to be growing it.
Just passed a law legalizing hemp growing.
Who did?
I mean, last week,
With the state or the
federal government.
growing chemicals where they're now extracting CBD from.
Yeah.
So this is very, very complex and complicated, and I think that CBD is, you can go to Oriana's and buy CBD candy bars right now, and that's part of the removal of the psychotropic aspects of marijuana, and usually CBD, which has other purposes, but that's part of the industrial use of hemp right now.
Anything else? Yes?
Make a question, but a comment about the proposed change to the Constitution. Our Constitution, as it is today, was last written in 1968, and it called for a 6-member panel to rewrite the boundaries every 10 years, composed of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans. Well, needless to, and if there was a tie and they couldn't resolve the issues, the deciding factor was to be the courts. So naturally, in 1970 and 1980, the Democrats and Republicans couldn't agree on the boundary changes, so the courts had to step in. They didn't like that rule, and in 1986, the Michigan Supreme Court decided, in its infinite wisdom, that they would delegate that job to the dominant party in the state legislature. And that's how we arrived at the position we are today. I have yet to hear an explanation of how the court legally did that, because it's always been my impression that courts are supposed to interpret laws, not change them, or let alone change the Constitution of the state. But that's, I would like to hear a legal explanation, but that's how we got to where we are now. The courts basically turned over the right of boundaries to political parties.
Anything else?
Well, I just think it's important that people, at least I think it's important people know that proposals, the first one can be changed by the legislature.
Yes.
If that passes, the legislature can still change it. The other 2 are constitutional amendments, which the public already said they want, and they can't be changed by the legislature. They become constitutional law.
Correct.
So I think that's important. I think you avoid each one of those, you know that there's a possible different outcome.
Thank you.
One more.
Oh, one more.
One more question?
Just wanted to say that 2 ballot proposals that were approved and put forth by the people have already been adopted by the legislature and will probably be changed during the lame duck, and that's the minimum wage and sick leave.
Family leave.
Yes, there were 2 ballot petitions that were made into law by the legislature recently.
I just want to make an announcement that Mark Brewer, who was the lawyer of record for the 2 ballot proposals that were removed from the ballot, is going to be here on Thursday, October 18th at 7 p.m. at the Dial-A-Ride building. And the Democratic Party is hosting that, and I have some flyers if you want to pick one up on your way out. He is going to be talking about the inside story of these proposals and also the current scoop on all the proposals that are going to be on the ballot. So I have handouts on that.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you, Paula. We surely appreciate all your research and next week, the state voter guide, the state printed voter guide that the League of Women Voters at the state level puts out will become available to us again. It'll look basically like this, and it will be delivered to my house next week. And from there, the League members will distribute it to libraries and city, township, village offices, some post offices. And it has a lot information about the candidates who are running at the state level, and let's see. And also, what I always find very helpful is the Board of Regents and other ballot issues that we're not familiar with in terms of, University Board of Regents, State Board of Education, the judicial things. The people who are running answer the same 3 questions, and you can get a pretty good idea then and become better informed on what their ideas are and how they would work and what they're thinking. And there's a place on the back where you can decide who you will have decided to vote for and take it right in the ballot booth with you. And so that's really helpful. Anyway, so be on the lookout for those.
Will that information be made available online as well, or only printed?
Yes, if you go to vote411.org, it isn't set up yet, but it will be very soon, so that you can electronically go to that, as Paula was talking about, put in your home address, and you can view what your ballot will look like, and the answers that the candidates have given to the league, the questions that the league has asked them.
It's up now.
Okay, ours, I looked today and I had a hard time at our local one.
State's up.
The state's up, yeah.
Our local gal that's doing the Vote 411 is just finishing up getting the answers back from all the candidates and getting them on her site. So hopefully by the end of this week, she'll have
That should be up very soon. Our league will also be having a candidate forum with the candidates for probate judge and county commissioner right here at this place, ISD, on October 11th, Thursday. You'll be able to hear the candidates speak about their qualifications, why they're running, and their ideas, and you'll be able to ask them questions. And then on Wednesday, October 17th, we'll have another candidate forum with the candidates for Manistee City Council. Is it the 6th district? There's one contested race for City Council, 5th. And that will be in downtown Manistee on River Street at the Marina, the Manistee Inn and Marina. And that will also begin at 7 p.m. So October 11th here for the judges and the county commission seat. And then October 17th, which is a Wednesday, downtown Manistee at the Manistee Inn and Marina in the lower level. There's a nice room down there. Okay, and of course, be sure to vote on the 6th of November. And before we leave, I'd like to quote Ken Grabowski from his editorial piece in yesterday's paper. The country is run by those who show up. Your vote does indeed count. So, thank you. And Judy, do you have something to add?
Yeah, what happened to the State House debate?
We had planned and asked the candidates running for the Senate 35th State District and the 101st State House of Representatives District. And at this point, both of the Republicans have not been able to come to next Thursday's forum. So I think we'll take a vote of the board, but that's all we can do. We can't just have a forum.